Blowing ad budget on metrics that look great till the CFO sees them, that's bull spend. And marketers are calling it out in Dashboard Confessions.
I remember telling my boss, it'll be good for the brand, when leads were slow. Yeah, it wasn't.
Cut the bull spend. LinkedIn lets you target by company, job title, and more. Advertise on LinkedIn. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a $250 credit. Go to linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey everybody, it's Weird Islanders, the podcast, back once again. My name is Dan. That is Mike. How you doing tonight, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. All things considered, we're recording this one a couple days after the Islanders boxed up their lockers.
Yeah.
Which was never fun when it comes before the playoff starts. But this should lift the spirits a bit. It's always fun to get together for a Weird Islanders episode. To do that during when the waters are choppy. With the Islanders, and this is going to be a fun one. We're expanding into new territory. We've turned over a lot of stones on our island. We've done a little jaunt with the Nashville hockey scene,
right?
And now we're adding a new territory. We're going across the Sound. We're going across the Sound, if you could believe it or not. Yeah. They couldn't build a bridge. They've been trying to build that bridge to connect the Sound and the island, or Connecticut and Long Island over the Sound, but now we get to do it audioly, if that's a word. So I'm excited to get into this.
Well, it's a word now because I like the way you put that. And yeah, new territory, new old territory, really, when you think about it in terms of the NHL landscape. And, maybe one day again, we'll see. But we're going to get all into it with our great guest tonight. He is the research director at Heartland Signal and one of my all-time favorite follows on this Earth's internet. He is Aaron Kleinman. Aaron, how are you doing this evening?
You are too kind. I'm doing fantastic after that little glaze there.
No, I've been a follower for a very long time, going back to the comment section of the late great Deadspin. And many writers, as we know, have come from that site and from that comment section. And when you're, reading these comments and a guy has a Hanson Brothers avatar and you're a huge hockey fan, you know that this is a kindred spirit. And so I'm like, oh, wow, Hanson Brothers avatar, that's awesome. And then as I follow more, I find out you're a hockey fan of a team we'll get to in a little bit. And like that Hanson Brothers avatar became so synonymous with you that your avatar on Blue Sky is you as one of the Hanson Brothers. So before we get too far, what's your history with the great movie Slapshot and the Hanson Brothers specifically?
Like many people who are really good with words, I was a terrible athlete, but hockey, and I'm terrible on skates, but I actually my friend invite me to play floor hockey the other day. And I was like, fuck yeah, finally my time to shine. And so, hockey was kind of like my number one sport for a very long time. And I grew up in West Hartford, Connecticut, which is of course only a few miles from the Hartford Civic Center where the Whalers played. From 1979 to 1997. I was born in 1984, which means they moved when I was 12 years old.
Oof.
And that was an education.
Yeah.
I learned how the world worked when I was 12 years old. Yeah. And it's a unhappy fraternity. But Bernie Sanders, actually, his worldview was shaped by the Dodgers leaving Brooklyn when he was a kid. And so I'm just like, I get it, man. I get it.
Yeah. I was going to ask, we'll get to the Whalers move towards the end, but you already kind of got there because I was going to be like, I know Mike and I have had our world, shaken by how the Islanders were kind of treated out on the island and all their problems. So I totally get where you're coming from. But that's actually a great segue to ask about Heartland Signal. So tell everybody about it. It's a fairly new site, right? I mean, it's only within the last year, I think you guys popped up.
Well, it's been around for a while, but I think we're aiming to kind of expand our horizons. It was historically kind of, very focused on Illinois, Midwest politics. And I think we're really growing a more national. And I can't say too much, but just stay tuned. I think we have really big plans there. And yeah, no, heartlandsignal.com. We also have an associated radio station, WCPT 820 out of Chicago. You can, of course, listen online. So they even let me go on sometimes if you want to listen to me. But I learned I'm not allowed to say the F word when I do that. So I'm going to let it fly now that I'm on a podcast,
And you also have a newsletter that is called Radio Free America that you labeled News for Normal People, which I love. And so I highly recommend signing up for that as well. You can sign up for that at Heartland Signal.
That's correct. Yeah.
Highly recommended. Check them out. Seriously, it's all great stuff. But we're here today to talk about the Hartford Whalers, your former favorite team. You said yourself you're a Connecticut native. How'd you get started watching the Whalers? I mean, I guess as a native, that was the team, right? I mean, that was the one you gravitated to if hockey's going to be your favorite sport, right?
I mean, it's the team you gravitate to if you care about any sport in Connecticut. It's right. If when you're in Hartford, it was that or the New Britain Rockcats.
Right.
And UConn basketball too is a big deal, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the Whalers, they were our only pro team. Hartford is a very overlooked city, and so it's like it always felt kind of odd. It's like, wow, we really have a NHL team, huh? Isn't like how did we swing that? And I think it in your heart you kind of knew that this wasn't something that could really last, but it was just so, as a kid especially, it's just like it's so great. You have I saw Wayne Gretzky play 5 miles from my house. How many other people can say that?
Right. For sure.
Me. That's what, and I think that's what what's so great about the Islander Whaler connection is. I mean, you guys, of course, are a fallen soldier, but there were so many nights where Dan and I would go to sleep, and you just didn't know if the Islanders would be here in the morning. And I feel the same way about the Islanders, and I feel like we've expressed that on our flagship podcast, Islanders Anxiety, just like how bizarre it is that there is a professional sports team in the middle of the suburbs on Long Island. Like you are driving down Hempstead Turnpike and there's a Wings and Things, a couple strip malls, professional sports team arena, parkways, right? Like it's just, none of it really adds up. And that was part of why what my fear was. And I feel like you just kind of connected on that too, which was like, man, when people find out what we're doing here, like that there's a sports team, they're going to be like, what the hell are we thinking? We got to get this one out of here. We got to put it in a real city with right. And so I understand that feeling. And boy, I mean, we felt the same way about the Coyotes when they left Phoenix and even the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. I went to college in Bridgeport and I've been to a New Britain Rockcats game actually, which is great. One of my friends from college, Knuckles, his family owned a pizzeria in New Britain. We went to the pizzeria, then to a Rockcats game, and it's a wonderful, wonderful night. One of the things that we've always talked about is these are real people who just get their part of their soul just ripped out. That's what it is. Sports teams become part of who you are as a person. And I truly, it is one of my greatest fears in life, honestly, because I don't know what I would do. And especially when you get it, smacked in the face like that as a 12-year-old. So I give you a lot of credit for kind of trudging on and not being so jaded about all this, because I would be an absolute mess without the Islanders. I'm a mess with the Islanders.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's a different, I mean, like I said, it does color your view of the world. And yeah, I totally relate to just you don't know what's going to happen at any given moment. And, at the same time, it's kind of like every moment that you do get is kind of like found money.
Right.
Because it's like, oh my God, we still have this scam going. It's like, it feels unreal sometimes. And actually, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, you went to Nassau Coliseum and it's in the middle of the strip mall. The Whalers played in, again, this Hartford Civic Center. They literally played inside of a mall.
Yeah. Yeah. A bizarre existence. It felt like the Whalers were kind of like everybody's quirky little brother team, right? They didn't really have much of a history in terms of great teams or playoff upsets or anything like that. So you could root for them because they weren't much of a threat. And when I say that as an Islanders fan, that means they must have been pretty bad, because the Islanders were definitely not much of a threat, particularly in the 90s, which we're going to talk about here. So you're about 12 years old, 1997 when they moved. This was a weird time. It was sort of a limbo for them. In 1994, Peter Carmanos buys the team. Along with former
spit
NHL.
whenever I spit when I hear his name.
He's right up there with like the Art Models of the world, God,
Ponytail Pete.
Yeah.
The team got sold for me a guy who had a friggin' ponytail. The indignity of it all.
For the bargain basement price of only $47.5 million. He pledges to keep the team in Connecticut for 4 years. 2 years later, he's like, hey, we don't have enough season ticket holders, so we're moving. And it's like, wait, what? That's it? You're moving?
Not only was it that, but they didn't even have like a deal lined up to go somewhere else. It was just like he saw that the governor that he was negotiating with, who later went to federal prison.
Another very Islanders concept, by the way.
Yeah. I moved to New York, and it's like, I totally fit in here. My old boss was a New York State senator, and he was telling me, he's like, I just assumed that the FBI was listening to every conversation I had when I was in the state Senate. They moved without a full-time home. They actually, they're in Raleigh now, but they actually, I think, played their first season outside of Connecticut in Greensboro in in like NC State's arena or something. It was a real slap in the face, because it was like when the Browns left for Baltimore, when the Nordiques left for Colorado, when the North Stars left for Dallas, they had like a situation waiting for them.
Right.
Whalers didn't. They were just like, we hate Connecticut so much, we are leaving. We don't know, we are going to sleep on our friend's couch while we figure it out. That's how much we don't want to be here. Yeah. That's how insulted we were.
It's not even a friend's house. We'll find somebody and sleep on their couch. Like, it's not even like we know anybody there. We're going to find somebody. So yeah, it was a pretty brutal existence, a weird, phantom zone of like, well, they're here, but they're moving. Again, the team itself wasn't that great. This was, of course, the period of the horrific Brendan Shanahan trade, where they send Chris Pronger to St. Louis to get Shanahan. He doesn't want to play there. They send him to Detroit for Paul Coffey. He doesn't want to play there. So they send him to Philly. And then, of course, the Red Wings and Flyers meet in the Stanley Cup final that year. We're going to talk about one of the pieces of that trade, by the way, in a little bit. But on April 11th, 1997, the Whalers play their final road game, and it is in Nassau Coliseum against the Islanders. And believe it or not, the Whalers were actually in a playoff chase in this season, and very much at this time. They were right there. There was a whole group of teams, the Capitals and I think Flyers, and even the Islanders briefly, although by this point they were eliminated.
Their pursuers all have 7, including the Hartford Whalers, who are moving from Hartford at the end of the season. They're also putting some moves on these days, and perhaps on the verge of ending 4 straight years of non-playoff participation. The New York Islanders have saved some of their best for last. They, like the Ottawa Senators, trail 8th place by a single point with a game in hand. The Islanders, though, have won 6 of their last 10, picking up significant ground over the last 2 weeks to get into playoff positioning. 4 of their final 7 games are on home ice.
And so this game actually meant quite a lot to the Whalers. They really needed this one to keep pace. I think the Senators also were in there too. Aaron, do you remember this game at all, or at least this time period of like the Whalers chasing for the playoffs in this season?
You're actually, let me stop you there for a bit and bring it back a little bit. Mm-hmm. The Whalers actually were in playoff contention very often. They excelled at being eliminated with like a few games left. Yeah. That was just de rigueur as part of it. Like, if you look at the standings then, they never really were in last place. And this was back when, like, in the NHL, where it's like where pretty much every team made the playoffs,
right?
And so, but it's like the last 2 teams in the division wouldn't make it, and the Whalers were never in last, but they were always in next to last, and but they were always also like fighting until the end to try to get in, and so, so it was actually pretty normal situation, and I remember that game. I remember like. The weird thing is, like, I don't actually remember watching it. I remember talking about it in shop the next day with my friends. But one thing I remember is like I had a little bit of like, okay, I can live with this because they're going to move no matter what. You
Right.
know, if they made the playoffs, they're going to get, crushed in the playoffs no matter, so it would have been nice. But also, it's like, so, we had season tickets, but we also shared season tickets. And my dad, he knew that we were playing with borrowed time. And so when it came time to pick which games everyone would get every year, he would always pick the last game first
Yeah.
because he knew that could always be their last game ever. And so, like, if they made the playoffs, it's like, well, I don't know if we'll have their last ever home playoff tickets. Like, I don't know how we figure that out with the two other families that we shared our tickets with, but I knew for a fact that we had tickets to that last game, and so I'm like, well, at least I get to see the last game. So
I have a ticket stub to. I collect ticket stubs, and I have one of my ticket stubs is a ticket to the last ever Hartford Whalers game in Connecticut, and it's a beautiful ticket. It's very, very 90s with a kind of that boilerplate goalie helmet on it with the Whalers logo, and
I can see it in my mind's eye.
yeah, it's beautiful. It's
Like,
a beautiful.
let me,
It's a beautiful ticket.
like, I'm gonna guess right now that it looked a lot like the NHL Tonight hockey goalie.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
you used to see it on T-shirts all the time. People,
Yeah.
they'd sell like New York Islanders shirt, and like the graphic part of the shirt would just be this nondescript hockey goalie helmet. It's incredibly, it's so 90s. I mean, and obviously the Whalers were in, and this game that we're talking about with Nassau Coliseum, it doesn't get more 90s
Right.
than the Hartford Whalers taking on the New York Islanders. There's a lot of teal everywhere, and it's in Nassau Coliseum, with obviously the Islanders being terrible at the time, Whalers pushing in a playoff chase with this is, if we could just go back to this and just capture some of the air. I can smell what Nassau Coliseum would smell like in this. And
seriously.
so I'm only 7 when this is going on, but I was starting to get into hockey and the Islanders, and like my older brother and cousins. What I'll say is the way they always talked about the Whalers was like they were always just there. They were just like, they weren't afraid of them, but obviously the Islanders were worse, and they were like almost like, yeah, this is a game we can win. This is a team we could beat. This is a team that just had its shit together a little bit less than us off the ice, but a little bit more together than us on the ice. So it was like this I don't know, it was weird. Like there was no disdain despite what should have been a pretty natural rivalry in terms of like distance, only one little body of water separating the poor man's Mediterranean Sea separating the two teams, right? Like it should have been something, but there was, I don't know, there was almost like a handshake between these two teams and fan bases.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I was at this game. I'm quite a bit older than you guys. I was in college, and my buddy Gio and I used to go to a lot of games on the student discount ticket plan at Nassau Coliseum. And this was definitely one, although it was the Islanders, their final home game of the season. So it was fan appreciation night. I don't know why this was on one of the cheaper tickets, but I guess they were just hoping to get anybody in the building. And so we went to this game. I wanted to see it specifically because it was going to be the last game on the road for the Hartford Whalers, and I wanted to see them one last time. It was also a return game for Derek King, who had many great years as an Islander, got traded to the Whalers that season for reasons completely unknown. Mike Milbury traded a guy to a team competing for the same playoff spot as them. Some Islanders weren't happy about it, which of course made Milbury not happy, but he was never happy. And so I remember this game pretty well. And I don't think I'm making this up because I can't imagine why I would have, but I'm pretty sure they gave out like plastic travel mugs at this game. And I am almost certain that when the game was over, and like I said, it was an important game for the Whalers. They really needed the points. They needed to stay alive in the playoff chase. And so what happened? They lose 6-4 to the absolutely shitty Islanders who were already eliminated. So that was bad. And I'm almost certain that more than one of those travel mugs hit the ice. And I can picture one whizzing past the head of Whalers captain Kevin Dineen. Don't think I made that up, but I was there, and it's one of those weird games where I'm like, oh yeah, this is the final game for the Whalers, and I remember getting a little bit emotional. It was weird. This team is not going to exist the next time I see them. That's very strange, and it was strange seeing them as the Carolina Hurricanes. But yeah, 6-4 loss for the Whalers to the Islanders. Sammy Kapanen had 2 goals. He was a very good player for the Whalers. Robert Cron and Stephen Rice with the other 2 goals. Robert Reichel and Claude Lapointe both had 2 goals for the Islanders. One of Lapointe's was shorthanded. Travis Green, Brian Smolinski with the other ones. I mean, Aaron, real quick, Sammy Kapanen, Jeff Sanderson, and I guess Kevin Dineen were probably the biggest stars for the Whalers at this point. Is that true, or am I forgetting somebody?
I would say Sean Burke, the goalie.
Oh, right, yeah, duh.
Definitely above average. We pretended that Glenn Wesley, because we basically gave up Sergei Samsonov for Glenn Wesley.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, let's pretend that Glenn Wesley's really good.
Yeah.
So those were the major ones. Yeah, but yeah, you captured the major ones. I mean, Robert Cron also, there's a level of guys like Robert Cron, Andrew Castles, who had just been around for a while, Andrew Cassels, who did, I don't know if I mentioned him already, but they'd been around for a while. Adam Burt, Paul Ranheim, and just because they'd been around and they hadn't torched the team like Brendan Shanahan or Paul Coffey or Chris Pronger. It's you know what? You like living in Hartford enough. It's better than Moose Jaw. Right. That we'll adopt you. And actually, also at this time, we lived literally across the street from Whalers GM Jim Rutherford.
No way.
That's right.
That's
wild.
Jeez. Did you ever see him outside and were like, Jim, trade for Jaromir Jagr or something like that?
I because I was 12, I was still I was starstruck by Jim Rutherford. Right. And so I wouldn't say, and my dad was always very nice, because he's like, hey, we're season ticket holders, and he would just be really nice to us. And but the thing is though, people would always ask him, are we sticking around? He'd be like, I don't know, I just run the hockey side, guys. They don't tell me anything. But he was always, again, he was a very nice neighbor, and so I kind of cheered for him at his future stops. So as much as I really didn't like the Penguins, I always felt like Marley and me would kind of big time the Whalers, whatever, and he would always be complaining to the refs. And so I never liked Lemieux, but when Rutherford was having his run with the Penguins, I was like, all right, go him. He was a nice guy when he lived across the street.
It's good enough.
It's wild to hear that, because it's, once again, it feels very, very Islanders in the respect of, for not as much anymore because of the new arena, the team's got a little bit more shine on it. But for most of my fandom, I felt like the players were just doing us a favor by showing up to work. I'm like, oh, good, they're back this September for training camp. It's nice to see that 3 of them aren't just trying to dodge us in Europe, being like, oh no, I'm going to stay in Slovakia. I'd much rather be here playing for my hometown team of Bratislava than come to the Islanders and maybe get a paycheck from Charles Wang if the bank account is in the black. So that definitely strikes a chord. And it is amazing that I've spent a couple days just listening and gathering hockey news, and people are discussing whether or not Jim Rutherford is going to keep his job as general manager of the Vancouver Canucks in 2026. We're
that is amazing that he's still, because he was kind of I remember him being older than my dad, and so and my dad, he's very happily retired, and so this guy his age who's still kind of running the Vancouver Canucks, I'm like, or older than him running the Vancouver Canucks, I'm like, Jim, buddy,
it's so good.
I saw those clubs, man. I know you golf. Right.
It's great too, because he's I like picturing him in the late 90s, because he's known as a guy who's he's quick trigger finger, and he's always trying to do something. He's always, that Jim Rutherford is always in on everything, is one of the he's making calls. He's always making calls. And without the internet as it exists today, I'm just thinking about Jim Rutherford with one of those, spiral corded phones and doing what he's doing now, just picking it up and calling the then GM of the Dallas Stars or the Ottawa Senators.
I mean, he was calling Mike Milbury kind of deal for Derek King.
Yeah, right. Trading for Derek King. Yeah. Hey, Mike, you wanna work on something?
I remember being really excited for that trade too, because the Whalers, they always needed scoring, and King was a really good scorer.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I remember being like, why are we trading one of the few guys that can actually score? What is happening right now?
Yeah, sorry you got ripped off by my neighbor.
That's I mean, if I had a penny for every trade Mike Milbury lost, I'd be very, very rich right now. But yeah, no, that's fine. It's nice that he was your neighbor. Like, again, like Mike said, like that's a very Islanders concept. Like the Islanders, even when they were winning cups in the early 80s, they lived here. They lived on Long Island. And so like it wasn't unusual to see, Bob Nystrom pumping gas, or like, Clark Gillies like just walking his dog, or like, your neighbor's girlfriend's cousin was babysitting for Mike Bossy. Like it's just something stupid like that. So I totally get what you're saying.
No, actually, the big thing was Glenn Featherstone lived in my town too. He was kind of an enforcer.
Right.
The Whalers got a lot of, we had secret. We actually, there were a lot of fights at Whalers games. They really stocked up on enforcers. And like Glenn Featherstone would always just kind of be like mowing his lawn, like just chilling out, and everyone saw Glenn Featherstone around. I remember.
That's really funny.
One
of my favorite names of that era too.
I mean, yeah, that's a great one. So yeah, it was just, they were part of the community. Again, it's not a big area. And I lived in West Hartford, which was, especially if you had like kids, there's probably the one that you wanted to live in.
Right.
And so, yeah, we just kind of like saw him around. It was, it all felt very tenuous as well.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah.
I'm sure he appreciated all those questions about whether they were staying too.
I'd be remiss if we also just didn't note that parallels are so striking, down to hating Mario Lemieux for and complaining to the refs, because if we have Mario to this day still gives the Islanders shit. So like just leave us alone, please, Mario. Like
we got a couple of other Islanders villains coming up in a little bit as well. And now a word from our sponsors. VintageIceHockey.com. Over 100 classic hockey logos on t-shirts, jerseys, hats, mugs, and more. Long Island Ducks, Albany Riverettes, Danbury Trashers, Kentucky Thoroughblades, and so many more. Plus a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch, with our portion of the sales going directly to the Center for Dementia Research. These incredible items cannot be found in stores, so shop VintageIceHockey.com today. Relax, sit back, and enjoy wine from The Pinot Project. Rosé, Pinot Grigio, or a Pinot Noir that was named a Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. These wines are delicious, affordable, and available at area wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com, and please drink responsibly. I'm glad you mentioned the fights, because sadly, not a lot of video of this game exists on the internet. It's kind of ridiculous. There's like this black hole, like early 90s to early 2000s NHL games that just simply don't exist because there's no evidence of them on YouTube or anything like that. But there is one video, and it is a fight, and it is a great way to get to our first of three Weird Islanders for the evening. The fight is Ken Belanger of the Islanders versus another one of my favorite names of this era, Stu the Grim Reaper Grimson, one of the great fighters of that time.
Carry the puck through the goal crease, through the goaltender, and here we go. We got fisticuffs going, folks.
Well, it's Belanger for the Islanders and Stu Grimson for the Whalers, a couple of heavyweights. And it's Belanger who's throwing some uppercuts, whether or not they landed, only the linesman, Pierre Shampoo and Brian Murphy, as well as Stu Grimson, know for sure, but the fans appreciate.
Ken Belanger was drafted by the Whalers, but he was traded to the Leafs. He only played a couple of games there before coming to the Islanders, where he spent 71 games, which I'll get to in a minute. So I don't expect you to remember Ken Belanger that much, but what can you tell us about Stu the Grim Reaper Grimson and his standing amongst Whalers fans as one of the premier enforcers of that era?
Beloved figure. like not an exaggeration. He was one of those guys too where it's like, I feel like all enforcers are like this, but like if there's ever like a community event, the enforcer's like, yeah, I'm doing that, man. I'm going to the children's hospital. I'm handing out turkeys at Thanksgiving. That's the enforcer. They do that. And so Stu Grimson was like that guy. Like Stu Grimson would show up at anything. And so, he wasn't with the team for that long, but like he made a good impression on everyone. And I think Whalers fans still love the guy. Also, I feel like enforcers, they're just like happy to kind of be in the league. So they can't be that picky about, where they're playing. And so, they can't pull, Brendan Shanahan until, and to make, enforcers aren't making trade demands.
Right. Yeah.
And so, you end up kind of cheering for those guys.
Yeah. They're not pulling the trade me right fucking now from Slapshot again.
Yeah.
Mike, again, you were younger at this point, but I know you went to a bunch of games at this time. Do you remember Ken Belanger of the Islanders, who was one of their premier tough guys at this time too?
Yeah, I do remember Ken Belanger. First of all, it's a name, right? Like as a 7-year-old, you hear the name Ken Belanger, it's gonna keep rattling around in your head. And just like what Aaron was saying, I feel like he was a name that was held in really high regard for just being a guy who would go out there and beat the crap out of people because they don't play for the New York Islanders. And he does, right? Like that's what, when you boil down an enforcer's job, it is, hey, I'm going to beat up people that don't play for my team. And that'll stick with you as a 7-year-old, the name, and of course the hair.
Yeah.
If you picked the best photo of every hockey player that's ever stepped foot on NHL ice, from the beginning of time, and you put them all in a NCAA style tournament and had them play one another for the best picture. There's one picture of Ken Belanger, where he's skating off beautiful blonde hair in the Coliseum wind. He's wearing the fisherman jersey, white fisherman jersey at home at Nassau Coliseum. He's got his jersey. He's rolling his jersey up over his elbow pads, and he's bleeding from like 6 different places on his face. And there's just like this one streak of blood above his left eyebrow. And he's looking up into the sky, and he just knows, like, I look so fucking cool right now.
Yeah.
And he does. And I think that this picture might win that tournament. I really do. I mean, I would take this picture. I think this picture speaks to hockey more than Bobby Orr flying through the air. Like this is a much more rock star picture than that. So Ken Belanger I think he's a name that if you like just mentioned still to the state Islander fans from this era, which you are, like people are like, guy fucking rocked.
Yeah, no, he definitely did. And in researching him for this, I was reminded of like Ken Belanger is like easily one of the handsomer fighters of this era or any era. Like he was a good looking dude. He probably didn't need to get punched in the face every other game. Probably not good for him, but he had long blonde hair. He had a great mustache. He was a handsome guy at the time. And, stood out amongst these fighters. He was definitely, like you said about Stu Grimson, very held in very high regard for the Islanders. Actually, here I am dogging on Mike Milbury because it's very easy to do. But one of the few good trades he made was getting rid of Kirk Muller for Damian Rhodes, who ended up getting traded to the Ottawa Senators in the Brian Berard deal, and Ken Belanger from the Leafs for Don Beaupre, who never played for the Islanders, and Kirk Muller, who did not want to play for the Islanders. So that was one of Mike Milbury's better trades. And Belanger is one of those guys, we talk about this a lot on this show, guys who I could have swore, if you asked me how many games Ken Belanger played as an Islander, I would have said probably 200, give or take. He just seemed like a guy who was around for a long time. 71 games. That was it. 71 games, less than a season. But in those 71 games, 8 points, 260 penalty minutes. that's a lot of penalty minutes. That's like he averaged almost 4 minutes a game. A lot of fights, obviously. And yeah, not a score, not needed to be a score. But then when the Islanders traded him to Boston, they traded him for Ted Donato, who I would also like to do an episode on this show. And like Donato was a scorer, like he had a couple of 20-goal seasons. And I was like, oh, wow, why would you trade a fighter for a guy who can score goals? Ken Belanger ended up being a friggin' power forward for the Bruins. Like he ended up having a lot of goals for the Bruins. He ended up having playoff goals for them. It was kind of crazy. So the Islanders, Mike Milbury got him in a good deal and then lost him in a bad deal, but that's another story. So that's the only video of this game is this fight between Belanger and Stu Grimson, the Grim Reaper. I don't know, no clear winner in this one, I guess. Of course, who knows what their beef was? I don't know. Oh, that was the other thing too, real quick about Belanger. The Florida Panthers at this time, who were, a newer team, had a enforcer named Paul Laws. And I did not know this, but Belanger and Laws fought each other not once, not twice, but 5 times in their careers. 5 times. That's like, he's got like an arch nemesis. Like that's more time. They fought more times than Muhammad Ali fought Joe Frazier. Like that's kind of crazy.
Yeah. These guys, it's like, I mean, some of it is like the guys who've been around forever, like the Pro Bears and stuff. It's like, of course they're going to kind of make their way through that many. But that's pretty impressive. That especially
Right.
because he also, like, I mean, in Boston, I guess he kind of reinvented himself, and he wasn't necessarily just that all the time. So that is, they must have, and also, like, I don't even remember that guy on the Panthers. So like, and I remember a lot of bad '90s hockey players, but
Paul Laws.
I don't remember Paul Laws. So like,
That's pretty funny. Most people weren't paying attention to the Panthers at that point. Also, well, we'll get to it. I don't know what your relationship with hockey was like after the Whalers moved either. So I think that's when Laws was doing a lot of his patrolling out there. But so Ken Belanger is our first Weird Islander this evening, but he's not our last. And in fact, the two other guys we have to talk about, both known for fighting as well. And they're both remarkably similar players. And one of the reasons I was so excited to do this episode with you, Aaron, was to talk to you because, again, I'm a huge fan, but also I never thought in a million years that we would ever get a chance on this show to talk about defenseman Doug Huda, who is kind of defensive defenseman, played for a bunch of different teams, including the Red Wings, Whalers, Buffalo Sabres, Islanders, and then LA and Anaheim as well. Did play a lot longer for the Islanders than I thought. We'll get to in a minute. But do you have any memories of Doug Huda? He came to the Whalers in a trade for another defenseman, Doug Crossman. And then he left in a trade for Mark Potvin. But do you remember Doug Huda in his 142 games as a Hartford Whaler?
It's like a vague memory of, like, on Sports Channel they mentioned, like, Doug Huda beats, it's Mario Lemieux beats Doug Huda, because I'm pretty sure he was on our third defensive pairing when he was here. I don't think he was that well renowned, but yeah, I mean, and it's fun just thinking about it because, again, you want to talk about my journey afterward. I kind of renounced hockey for a while. I even tried back then, like, giving a go of being like, well, the Rangers are right there, but my heart was not in it at all. And so I'm just like, I'm a hockey widow. But then, I got kids now. They somehow figured out that hockey is the best sport to watch. And so, I've started watching more hockey. And the amazing thing to me is just like how every player now would have been the most athletic player. Like, every player now looks like how like Jaromir Jagr looked back then,
right?
Or who in Jagr, I think I'm trying to think like who was the most athletic player in the game back. Probably Peter Forsberg, actually. Like, every player now looks like Peter Forsberg.
Yeah, right. Especially amongst defensemen. Like, again, Huda was kind of a pylon. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Like, he was a defensive defenseman. He was there to either clutch and grab and hook and hold and fight, try and get in Mario Lemieux's way, basically, or fight whatever Penguins, enforcer they had there. And those guys just don't fly now. They just don't exist because they can't, because everybody, like you said, everybody's so athletic, they'll just get around them. There is no Doug Hudas out there to just stand in front of the net and hope that the puck either hits you or you can fight somebody. So, but he managed to have a long career, 561 games, again, across like 6 different teams, 142 games for the Whalers, 356 penalty minutes, and then 101 games with the Islanders with 146 penalty minutes. I thought that Huda played he's the opposite of Ken Belanger for me. I could have swore he played like 35 games for the Islanders. No, it was 101 fucking games for the Islanders. And I guarantee you they were probably one of the worst teams in terms of goals against with Doug Huda on the ice. I'm just going to go out and say that. He was signed by them as a free agent, which was pretty rare. And then he was traded away with Travis Green and right wing Tony Tuzzolino to Anaheim for JJ Daigneault, Mark Janssens, another former Whaler, and Joe Sacco, who also I need to do an episode on this show of. And if you don't remember that trade, it's because it went down the same day that the Islanders acquired Trevor Linden, which is the one trade everybody remembers from that era. And if you're a newer fan, you may remember Doug Huda as an assistant coach for the Islanders, and when they had the worst penalty kill in NHL history. So, Mike, I know you remember assistant coach Doug Huda, but do you remember player Doug Huda at all? Again, defensive defensemen are hard to do on this show. We just did a whole episode on Rob Davison because he scored 1 goal in a game that we'll never forget. But defensive defensemen are very hard to do on the show because there's just not a whole lot to kind of talk about unless you saw the guy play.
Yeah. I do remember Doug Huda, but I remember him as a Mighty Duck. Like being a child of the 90s is like the Ducks. The Ducks were a pet team of everybody's because of the movies and all that. So like those late 90s Ducks teams, boy, did I love them. And Geehy Bear, Doug Huda, Hey, Stu Grimson. Stu Grimson was
That's right.
another guy who like
That's right.
I think of Stu Grimson as an Anaheim Mighty Duck, and so I remembered Doug Huda as a Duck. But what I love about this trade is that it is incredible. Like in terms of impact, like Travis Green ends up being a decent NHL player, but none of these guys really end up moving the needle anywhere. But it's a lot of coaches involved in this trade. Doug Huda, assistant coach. Travis Green is head coach of the Senators right now. Joe Sacco was the interim coach for the Bruins, and he's another guy who, like, when I remember Joe Sacco, of course, as a Mighty Duck too. And so that's those are my thoughts on Doug Huda, the player. I don't know if I'd want him back as an assistant coach for the New York Islanders.
No thanks.
And to Aaron's point, when he was talking about the athleticism of the player today and the skills of the player today, the Islanders version of Doug Huda right now is Scott Mayfield, right? Like Scott Mayfield's this big, hulking defensive defenseman now, and he looks 2 or 3 steps behind in today's NHL.
Right.
He would be Chris Pronger.
I was going to say,
he was going to be, like, that's who he would be. Like,
Doug Huda makes Scott Mayfield look like Scott Niedermayer. Like,
right. You're just like, I really, especially if you're a newer fan, I'm actually almost done going through it right now, but I'm watching the 99 Stanley Cup final on YouTube, and these are the 2 best teams in the league meeting, right? In the Stanley Cup. And this Stanley Cup final was unbelievable. This is, of course, the famous skate in the crease. Yeah. And you could find a bunch of full like versions of these games on YouTube. And if you watch these guys, boy, you're like, these guys all suck at hockey. Like, they all suck at hockey. But that's what it was back then. And I mean, there were like 3 players on the ice that looked like they were good at hockey in this game, and 2 of them were playing goalie. So like, it's just amazing to watch. Koshik and Belfour, and the play-by-play guy Gary Thorne is just screaming and screaming and screaming the whole time. And that's because I think that's like the natural human reaction to this kind of sport, is just to shout, because there's just guys mauling one another over and over again. And I think being introduced to hockey in this era, and especially because it was like the Islanders were so bad, like, you're kind of walking into you're almost like walking into like a WWE thing situation. And that's what these guys like Doug Huda, Ken Belanger for sure, like, they kind of remind me of, and they really wrap me into this universe. So yeah, seeing these names involved in this trade and the names we're talking to, like, this all just smacks of the 90s. And like, Aaron, like the Whalers, like, in terms of just like culture, like actual mainstream culture, like that logo has now become, I feel like, a patch, basically. If you were to make a 90s jacket, right, and you're just buying a bunch of iron-on patches, like the Whalers logo would be just one of like the kitschiest ones that you can think of. Is
kitschy. Hold on.
Let's just say, like, does it bother you? I feel like that's what I'm saying. It would become like, has it become to that level where you see people wearing it and you're like, did you actually live through that? Like, did you?
No, I mean, that is it. Like, I remember we were on vacation, and there was another guy wearing Whalers gear, and he was from Stores, and I'm from West Hartford, so we just, like, he and I bonded. But like, I see people wearing Whalers gear, and I'll go up. If you wear Whalers gear around me, I'll go up to you, and I'll be like, "Yo, man, I had season tickets, man. I'm from West Hartford. I went to Hall," and they'll just be like, "Oh, I'm a graphic designer, and I love the design," because it is like. Everyone says it's like the use of negative space between the tail and the W to create the H is, ingenious.
Genius. Yeah.
And so the logo is like a big deal. So I'll see people wearing it, and I'll just like lose my mind, be like, "Yo, man, Whalers person here. I'm a Whalers guy too." And so, if you wear that, be ready to talk about the whale. I'm not saying that you have to be from Connecticut. I'm not saying that you have to, even know that much about hockey. But like, if you're wearing Whalers logo, you got to be ready to represent the culture. You got to be ready to talk about the Whalers.
Yeah. At least accept that I'm gonna talk into your face about it, right? Like I feel the same way if I see people in like Islanders gear or something. Like my wife, or another thing of mine is cricket. Like if I see somebody or hear someone with an accent from a cricket playing country, like I immediately just go up and start talking to them. And my wife's like, "You gotta put the cricket fangs away, man." But
so like, is the Islanders like? I remember the Gorton's Fisherman logo got like razzed for but like, is there purchase among the Islanders outside of Long Island?
It's pretty bare. I live in
Very
New
bare.
Jersey, and
Yeah.
every once in a while I'll see some Islanders gear here. During the playoffs, you see a lot, and I work in New York City, so you see a lot more in the city during the playoffs, but it's pretty rare enough that when you see it, you're like, ooh, like it's like that the sound from Metal Gear Solid, like whoop, like that, like, oh, the little exclamation point goes out, like, oh, my radar has gone off. There's an Islanders fan in the midst, but you're a lot better than I am, because a lot of times I'll just kind of walk on because I'm afraid somebody's going to like start to rip my ear off about some trade that happened 50 years ago that they're still mad about.
I feel like it's also the inverse with the fisherman, right? Like I'll wear the fisherman and I'll get somebody coming up to me and be like, dude, that's the sickest logo. And I'm like, oh, you're an Islander fan? And they're like, no, but I love that logo. Like that's one of my favorite logos in sports. And I'm like,
that is actually like a kitsch icon.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But I wanted to ask you this kind of from the jump too, is like, the Hurricanes are now starting to wear Whalers jerseys. And I remember Dan and I having this conversation. Yeah, we had this conversation when it was happening. We're like, I'd be so offended.
Right.
And
I mean, it's like it's bad enough you took them away.
Right. Like,
and now you're like kind of like rubbing it in our face.
And it sucks to hear the hockey people in the media being like, this is so cool. I'm like, you were working for ESPN. You were working for NHL Tonight when the Whalers were taken away from your backyard. Like,
yeah, you were in Bristol, man.
Yeah, like, why do you think this is
I
cool?
know you went to those games, Booch.
I found that so offensive. And it's the same thing with the Nordiques and the Avalanche. I'd be like, are you kidding? Like, you're trying to tell me that this is, I feel like there's like a lawsuit you could file. This is unbelievable that people think that this is cool. And like and Hurricanes fans are like, yeah, this is great. It's a whale night. Like, dude, you're in Raleigh. Like, that's not, you're not in Hartford. You can't take that.
Yeah, I'll admit it. I saw a guy wearing Hurricanes gear on the street, and I said, "Fuck you."
Good.
I don't think he even heard me. I get a reaction. It's New York, so it's like I could have been saying that to anyone.
Right.
But the worst part this year, I am going to be in Raleigh.
Oh wow!
In May 4th to 5th. Where they might have a home game.
Thankfully,
it's at like kind of like a conference center that's like away from everything. And if people are like, let's go out of the town, I'll be like, hell no. I want nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
I am anti this. When they won the cup, I was like, that was just devastating, man.
Yeah.
Like that really was just like tearing my heart. Like that was the worst sports. Like, I'm a fan of, like I'm a Yankees fan, Giant. Like that was worse than the Yankees losing to the Sox, no question.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that.
That was worse than the Giants losing on that. I guess the worst loss they've had was
the Trey Junkin.
The Trey Junkin. I actually was thinking the Deshaun Jackson punt return was even worse than that. The Giants got a lot to pick from, and so and then UConn basketball. I mean, they've had so much success. Like it's hard to be mad about that.
Yeah.
Them winning the cup was just the worst sports moment in history.
While we're on that subject, because I wanted to ask you this later, though, but Paul Maurice was head coach of the Whalers in 1997 as we're talking about this. And he just won 2 cups with the Florida Panthers. And as Mike and I were talking when the Islanders hired Peter DeBoer just a couple weeks ago, there was a time when Paul Maurice was not thought of as this like Stanley Cup pedigree coach. Like he was the guy who used to coach the Whalers and he coached the Jets. Like, what the hell? What, now all of a sudden he's winning cups. I mean, did you get the same feeling from watching him win the cups with the Panthers? Or
no, I got nothing against the guy. I was happy for all the players whenever they had success. Like, I mean, Marek Malik somehow had this like really long career in NHL, and I was like, yeah, good. Like he was the last former Whaler to be in the league, and I would cheer for Marek Malik, no problem. And Paul Maurice, he wasn't really thought of that highly on the Whalers, but also he was the youngest coach in the league when he took over the Whalers. Yeah. I think he and like his whole thing. I think he got like an eye injury when he was playing young, and so he just became a coach really young. The other thing was I was maybe the only hockey fan who didn't mind Pierre Maguire because he was a Whalers guy too, and so I know he's not a popular guy, but it's like it's kind of like carrying the torch. I didn't really think he's that good of a coach, but it's good to just kind of see him. Still there.
Fellow podcaster Pierre Maguire.
Yeah.
We can get him on the show too.
I feel like we're pretty chummy with Pierre.
I feel like he's a guy who'll say yes to anything.
Yeah.
He's
an enforcer. He's like an enforcer. Like, you want to come to this community event. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I'm just really sorry that those teams do that. I think it's so wrong. It's just so wrong. So I wanted to bring that up and see to make sure I wasn't like defending something that other people don't even think of. I'm glad that Whalers fans feel that way. I mean, and we despise the Canes. We do.
Good.
So,
Everyone should. If you're listening to this, you
definitely.
should. You know, I want to do like Ludovico technique on everyone to make them hate the hurt. You know, they're we're going into another playoff where they're at risk for winning another cup, and I need all of your hating aimed directly at Raleigh, North Carolina. I have faith in everyone that they can do that we can hate them out of this, you know. And I mean, well, who are you guys cheering for in the playoffs?
Anybody, it's anybody but the Canes or Pens, man. Like, and it's a weird
much,
year for us because Dan and I, we literally do an episode every year celebrating when the Toronto Maple Leafs get eliminated. Like, and I'm now going through it. I'm like, oh shit, I fucking hate every other team in the league besides the Islanders. Because I'm like, I don't want them to win. Like, so as long as it's not the Hurricanes, the Penguins, the Maple Leafs, the Rangers every year.
Yeah, I was gonna say you talked about rooting for the Sabres, and that seems like probably the most fun option. I think.
Yeah. Even then, I'm like, God, I can't see the Sabres win a Stanley Cup before the Islanders in my life, so I got to root against them too. So like, I just go down the list. I'm like, I just can't. Just if it's not going to be the
probably
Islanders,
a Western Conference team, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Brock Nelson plays for the Avalanche, and he was an Islander for 15 years. So a lot of people are rooting for the Avs to win, so that Brock can get his cup. Obviously,
you cheer for your guys, you know, all the Bruins fans cheering for Ray Bourque when he was on the Avs, and people were like, oh man, the Bruins are never going to win a Stanley Cup again. And I'm like, man, I wish.
I wish I could believe that. That's really funny. Real quick before we get back to Doug Huda, the thing that gets me about the jersey thing is like, it's 2026. We're talking about a move that happened 29 years ago. Now you guys decide to wear the Whalers jerseys. Like, nobody rooting for that team in Raleigh has ever seen the Whalers play. It's just I mean, I know the NHL is a business. They're all trying to make money, but this is one of the more naked cash grabs you could possibly have, or just like, well, here's another jersey. Why don't you go get one? Andrei Svechnikov jersey in green. Like,
the rule should be that like you don't get to do that unless the city you moved from gets another team. So it's the Dallas Stars can do North Star stuff. I'm okay with that. The Wild, it's not that much fun being a Minnesota Wild fan, but at least they're there.
Right.
You know?
Right.
That's true.
It's really true. Yeah.
Right.
And like when the Islanders were kind of in limbo, I remember people saying, like, maybe they'll move and come back. And I was like,
no,
it's just not, that's not going to happen.
That's not happening.
It's not going to happen, man. Like,
but they kind of did.
I guess. I mean, in a way, yeah, but they never left the physical landmass of Long Island. So
that's right. They were always on the railroad.
Right.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
We got some videos here of Doug Huda. I found a lot of fight videos. I didn't see him winning a lot of these fights, but that's okay. He flew in to fight Rob Ray, which was really fun to see in a game against the Sabres.
Save by Monarchuk, and Ray plowed into Castles, and he'll get a penalty. Now we get a Whaler flying in there. That's Doug Huda. Huda throws a big right. Huda threw a right from South Windsor.
That's a suburb of Hartford. Huda took exception to Ray cranking Andrew Castles, and he come right in from the point. Discussing this, we'll see what happens. There's a hit by Ray from behind on Andrew Castles, and watch Huda. He'll come in right there, and he just loses his balance, but as they get to their feet, East Windsor, I don't know where that is, Rick, or South Windsor. I know where East Windsor is, but here's the right. Now we're not going to see that famous right from South Windsor. Now here's the hit by Ray as he cross-checks Castles into Clint Malarchuk. And watch Huda coming from the bottom of your screen. This will be an interesting call. That was a terrific right. You know, with a 4-0 lead, I guess you can go to the defense you put your partners, your teammate. Here it is here. Oh, hey, that's about as good as you get. That's right. We'll give that. It was a downtowner.
And there's one against the Lightning where he went with Jason Weimer, who would eventually play for the Islanders, and it was a wild one.
Down about 15 or 16 here. We got a little battle going on now. Doug Huda.
Jason Weimer. More wrestling than anything for the time being. Certainly frustration on the part of the Lightning. And Doug Huda, too, has been scratched recently and hasn't had a whole lot of ice time. And both of them trying to land right hands. Now Huda's helmet knocked off by Weimer, and Weimer decisions Huda.
Again, I'm just happy to talk about Doug Huda. I didn't think we would ever get the chance. This man scored a career total of 19 goals in 561 games. So it's not like he's out here lighting the lamp.
I'm trying to think, is there any, this is a good like kind of trivia question. Like, are there any like active NHL players who have been in more than 500 games and have fewer than 20 goals?
Oh God. That's a great question. I don't know.
It's probably no. Like,
yeah.
Like you can't make it in the league anymore.
No.
You can't be one-dimensional anymore in a way that players could be back then.
Think about Radko Gudas, man. Like Radko Gudas is like a straight throwback, or what people think is a throwback. But the guy can move. He's got a decent shot, and he's probably played what?
885 games for Gudas. He's got 42 goals.
Right.
He's got more than twice as many as Huda in 300 more games. So yeah. But no, you're right. Like it's hard to do. I mean, we Mike and I had it out for a fourth liner for the Islanders named Kyle McLean, who has in 171 games for the Islanders has 27 points. And it's like, why is this guy still playing here? That's about as bad as it gets. But he's a fourth liner. He hits. He doesn't even fight.
Yeah.
So.
And even when you watch him, like this, he gets around the ice. Like the guys who were on the fourth line back then, it's just because they just didn't have enough hockey players. It felt like and honestly, in the 90s, in like the late 90s, if you went to an Islander game, there was a 9-0 chance that you were going to end up playing for the Islanders then. They were just like, might not be able to make payroll or whatever. Yeah. And they were like, just get the guy who was playing club hockey at Hofstra and just see if he can.
Yeah. Well, it really got the worst though, like at the start of the aughts, right before the lockout. Yeah. Because they really expanded a lot and they just didn't have the players to do that. Yeah. And that was also a good time for me to really just kind of give up hockey. But I kind of I worked my way back to it, and and now it's just that's the thing. It's like you don't have any one-dimensional players anymore. And like back then, you could have a guy who like all they're doing, like a really fast guy who couldn't really do anything. There were a few of those.
Jeff Sanderson kind of reminds me of that. Like I feel like Jeff Sanderson just flew around the ice all the time.
He did. Like
he was good, but
he also he was just kind of like a freak athlete in general. And I think he probably if he'd been on like the Penguins or something and he'd been on a line with like Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr, again, the Plum situation, but something like that, he would have, he would have been one of the best people. He would be very well known today. He ended up, even after he was on the Whalers, he went to the Canucks when they weren't good or something.
Jeff Sanderson had his best seasons playing for the Whalers and Blue Jackets.
Yeah.
Hartford and Columbus.
Yeah.
He scored 40 and 30 goals for them.
But when they would have the NHL All-Star game, skills competition, he would always kick butt.
Yeah.
And he was from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. All he did, only thing he could do there was just skate. And so he was he could move so much better than anyone else on the ice. And he was just on these teams full of just plotting guys who he couldn't really do much with.
Jeff Sanderson and Andrew Castles, who you mentioned before, I always remember as being killers in NHL 94, 95. Those dudes, they might as well have been LaFontaine and McGillney or Bure and Linden or whoever. They were just that awesome. Cliff Ronning. Yeah, exactly. They were just that good.
He's one of our favorites. He has an episode of this show.
Oh, yeah.
If you ever want to listen to an hour and change talk about Cliff Ronning and his New York Islanders career,
this is
the show for it.
He was so great in NHL 94 because NHL 94 did kind of accurately reflect player skills. That's true. But what they didn't accurately reflect was player sizes. And Cliff Ronning was tiny.
Yes. Tiny guy. Yeah.
But he was just an amazing. He was blazing fast, amazing puck handler, really good shot. And so just he was unstoppable in that game, even though in real life he would just get kind of crushed.
Yeah. That's his legacy. I think he was also there was a story about that. I think he was buddies with them or something, or the game was there was something there where they kind of maybe tweaked it a little bit. But it definitely didn't reflect for size because everybody's the same size and he was just that much better than Mario Lemieux. Was actually really funny. Well, we do have one other weird Islander for tonight. And actually, again, what's funny about all three of these guys is they all had Whalers connections. Belanger was drafted by the Whalers. Huda played for the Whalers for 100 plus games. And so did our last weird Islander. And that is another defensive defenseman, Kevin Haller. Haller actually is by far the most decorated of the guys we're talking about here. He was a first round pick. He was 14th overall by the Sabres. Ended up bouncing around, played for the Habs when they won the Cup in 1993. got traded to the Flyers, and then eventually got traded from the Flyers to the Whalers in that deal for Paul Coffey. So again, Coffey didn't want to be there any more than Brendan Shanahan did. He ends up on the Flyers. Shanahan's Red Wings play Coffey's Flyers in the finals that year. I remember ESPN specifically pointing that out. So yes, you're 100% right. Bucci was definitely at those games at the mall watching the Whalers play. But Haller in this game was a Whaler, and he played 100 games on the nose for the Whalers, 5 goals and 142 penalty minutes from 96 to 98. And then he came to the Islanders as a free agent. But this was towards the end of his career. He had a lot of injury problems, abdominal issues, groin injury, and he only ended up playing 31 games over the course of 2 seasons. And he had 1 goal, 5 assists, but still managed to get 58 penalty minutes. So more than almost twice as many penalty minutes as he had games. So again, didn't lose his fighting skills. And I found a video of him. I talked before about a couple of other Islanders villains here. Maybe Kevin Haller ends up being everybody's favorite out of this episode, because I have videos of him fighting not only Mark Messier while he was with the Flyers.
Cascading down from all levels, and here we go. Messier and who? That's
Haller.
Yeah.
Hey, if there's one way to light up that white bench, this is it right here. When does Mark Messier drop the mitts like he's doing right now?
Rarely. Is this a 10-point must system on this one, Darren?
That's it. That's what you know. That's what gets everybody going here.
But Darcy Tucker when he was with the Islanders. So yeah, 2 guys Islanders fans have absolutely no love for at all.
The center ice, Bramanis couldn't keep it in, and it's up into the crowd and out of play. And now here's Haller and Tucker. This discussion went on the icing earlier on. Tucker and Haller. And Haller trying to get his arm out of his jersey. He's flailing around with his jersey. Now they're in pretty tight. I don't know if they're going to get an arm free. Haller's trying. Tucker trying to throw an uppercut. Can't get that arm free. They're both got a pretty good grab of each other's sweater. This is Darcy Tucker's 3rd fight of the season. And now the linesmen are going to get them in there.
I remember Haller playing for the Islanders, but again, like Huda, he was just like a defensive guy. Like he was just there because the Islanders didn't play any defense. So like, let's bring in some old guys to play some defense, and they still ended up sucking.
You could tell, like, so it's interesting that he was traded for Coffey, because like I remember Paul Coffey on the Whalers, and it was like exciting because he was like this, future Hall of Fame defenseman. He's on our team, and like you would see him, and you could tell, but just by like his body language, he did not give a shit. He did not want to be there. He was cashing his paychecks and just like hoping to get traded. Like you could tell there's lack of effort. Haller, God bless, like you could tell he had like good hockey IQ. You could tell that he could kind of see the ice really well, and he was playing. Right. He was just so slow, man. He was he was, and like again, that's another thing. Now you watch the game now versus like those 90s ones, and it's like this guy could not exist in the like this guy would be playing in the ECHL right now.
Yeah, not the kind of guy you probably want to trade for Paul Coffey. But Mike, do you have any memory? So Haller played in 2000 for the Islanders, so a couple of years later, and this was again right kind of in your wheelhouse. Do you have any memories of him at all? Again, it was only 31 games because he did get hurt, but he played a pretty good chunk of that first season, and then the next year only 1 game. So if you didn't remember him, I wouldn't be surprised.
Au contraire, no, I Kevin Haller's not because of what he did, but actually what he didn't do is one of the most important Islanders in my life, because I'm so happy we're talking about Kevin Haller, because I didn't think anyone was ever going to land on him because he's very nondescript, didn't play much for the Islanders, etc. But I want to talk about him, and I'm so happy we are, because his injury, he played 1 game in 2001, 2002, got hurt. That was the end of Kevin Haller. Made room for Radek Martinek, who became one of my favorite New York Islanders. And in my mind, Radek Martinek is like a true, unique sports person, because he played close to 500 NHL games, 7 of them for the Columbus Blue Jackets, the rest for the New York Islanders. Those 7 games came towards the end of his career, and basically everyone's like, you got to go. You're a New York Islander. You can't be playing for the Columbus Blue Jackets. You got to go back. And what I love about Radek Martinek was he came to the Islanders, was decent in his rookie year, that 01-02 season, and when I say decent, like a good number 6 defenseman, and he never moved from that plateau ever. He just was like, "This is my role. I'm going to show up. I'm going
born to be a 6th defenseman." That was
exactly. Pop in 1 or 2 goals a season, drive you nuts, maybe 1 or 2 games, but the rest you're just not going to notice me. And I brought this up years ago. Look, whenever we talk about Radek, I think that of all the players who played 490 something games or more in the NHL, I think that Radek Martinek is probably known to fewer fan bases outside of the team he actually played for than any other player. And I say that in a good way, because he just didn't need to be. He didn't need to do anything else. Like, he just was so content with being Radek Martinek and showing up, doing his little job. And as he's still on the island, he shows up to every alumni game. He's always at the practice rink still coaching like the junior Islanders or whatever he's doing. And you were talking about Ken Belanger's look earlier, and Radek, I'm sorry to say this, but when you entered the league, you were very far behind Ken Belanger in the handsomeness rankings.
Yeah.
But if you see Radek Martinek now, he is a good-looking dude. I mean,
really?
it took 20 years, but Radek's figured out. He's like filled out. He's just a handsome guy now. And there's just so much to love about Radek Martinek for Islander fans and Radek Martinek, the Islander. It all started with Kevin Haller getting hurt, playing one game, and I remember Howie Rose being like, given the old, well, one man's injury is another man's opportunity, and there's something called Radek Martinek playing for the New York Islanders tonight.
Oh man! Oh, please tell me there's video of that. I gotta try and find that.
Yeah.
I did not expect when we were going to talk about Kevin Haller that we would get to Radek Martinek. So I appreciate that. I'm very glad that we got to talk about Kevin Haller, and I'm glad that you remembered him, Aaron. That's amazing. But unfortunately, we have come to the part of the show where we have to rip open the wound once again. And we've been talking about the final road game. The Whalers lost. Their playoff chances are out. They do play their final game 2 days later, April 13th in Hartford, 2-1 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yeah. And there's video of this third period. Extremely emotional for everybody in the building. Nobody wanted to leave because they wanted to see the Whalers as much as they could. Kevin Dineen gives a speech at the end.
Puck is loose this way. Sanderson after it. Castle's behind the goal, right out in front. There's Dineen. He scores! Say Captain Dineen. 2-0 Whalers.
What a fitting third period to have the captain come up big. I talked in a second about him being so close to 20. I think it would be a great story for Kevin Dineen. It's meant so much to this city. And what a great play it is here. Jeff Sanderson in the corner. Andrew Castles to Kevin Dineen. The blind back in, and just a quick wrist shot. And there is Kevin with a big smile. It means a lot to that man, I guarantee you that. The heart and soul of this team and franchise. We talked about Ronnie Francis, but this guy is the blood and guts.
The emotions at an all-time high right now. Kevin Dineen gets the goal. These people have worshipped this man over the years because he has put everything he has into this organization. There was a time where he went away. He went to Philadelphia. They brought him back. They brought back so much tradition. And Kevin Dineen put the blue and green back on.
Take us back there, year 12. This has to be just, I mean, here you are 30 years later, and it still obviously affects you still. Like, this is your team of your youth. You still love these guys, and that was the last time you saw them on your home ice.
Yeah, the last time anyone ever saw them. I was there. Yeah, I was one of 15,000 people, give or take. Yeah, I was in section 301, row B, seat 12, like I always was. Real hockey fans know that the best seats are actually bottom of the upper bowl in the corner. I'm totally serious. I love those seats. I was so lucky to have had that. Like, I got to see so much. Again, in retrospect, pretty bad hockey, but also, I mean, I saw Wayne Gretzky, I saw Mario Lemieux,
sure.
I saw Mark Messier, I saw all these guys come to town, and and I will say that team, not very successful, but I never remember them like not caring. I always remember them fighting. I always remember them giving them their all, and like that is kind of like a good lesson to absorb in your 12, especially again. I had, it's like, it's kind of corny, but like when you have kids and you like look back and it's like, actually it really doesn't matter whether you win or lose. It really is how you play the game. It's like, it's all about being a good teammate and trying hard,
Right.
And so, there was that. And so, like, in a lot of ways, I was just so lucky to have been able to see the NHL in these seats for so long. And in retrospect now, but it's a when you're 12, you just get this awful, awful education in how the world works. And that's what happened. And you said no one wanted to leave. And, unfortunately, I was 12. It was a Sunday. I had to go home and do homework.
Yeah.
So I couldn't stick around toward the very end. One of my friends got Stephen Rice's jersey because they just,
oh wow,
yeah, they ended up throwing all their gear into the stands.
Hmm.
And so, like if any kids' parents were less assiduous about their geography homework, like maybe I could have snagged something. Yeah, that was it. And then, I kind of went on a journey, and now, I even like when the Islanders played at Barclays Center. What year did they play there?
2015 to 2019, I want to say, somewhere in that. They did a lot of split stuff too towards the end.
Yeah, like I remember when they first moved there, I'm like, maybe I could get into that, and then everyone was like, the sightlines of Barclays are terrible. You don't want to go there.
It's actually funny. Mike and I talk about this all the time. Like, we actually, the two of us, enjoy that era because, again, I work in the city, so I was able to get to games really quickly. And, whereas at Nassau Coliseum, it was way too far. And so we had kind of scouted out, like you just said, lower bowl, those first couple of rows, that was the spot on the corner. They were perfect at Barclays Center. But once the word got out that the sightlines were terrible, that they were just cooked at that point. And the players also hated playing there, to be honest with you. So I was going to ask if you had, as a Brooklyn guy now, if you had considered the Islanders at some point, but I would never make the sales pitch to you because I know you care about the sport too much.
I was talking to my boss about this too, about like Knicks versus Nets, and like the Nets, like he lives close to the Nets too, but just like the kids absorb that, like, no, the Knicks are the thing,
right?
And it's like, oh, but the Nets are so close, but also like the Nets are like way too expensive anyway. But like, but also like the Rangers, like they are the thing here. I mean, it's a lot easier for me to get to the Rangers, and like on the one hand, they're bad and they're going to be bad for a long time.
Yeah,
but the tickets are cheap. You can get, again, those seats that I got with my dad. I can take my kid there for like $50 a pop, like kind of corner near the bottom of the upper bowl. It's like, is history restarting? Maybe, but the Whalers, you can't forget. Kind of when you're 12, everything just means a little more to you,
Yeah,
and that doesn't leave you.
No, definitely. I don't know how old your kids are, but all I got was 2 words for you: Matthew Schaefer. Who is probably not much older than they are. he's a very young man playing very well for the Islanders. So I'm just saying, if you want to take him to a game, definitely check out.
Maybe when a little, we can try to trek out to Elmont, but we already got the Vincent Trocheck shirtsy,
No.
Yeah.
Him too. I mean, there's nobody I like seeing get eliminated from the playoffs out the side of John Tavares more than Vincent Trocheck, that rat, which I guess makes him good if he's your guy. Like, it's fun to have people hate him like that, but man,
he's a guy I could have seen playing on the Whalers at some point. Like, again, he's a little dirty, he's a little irritating, doesn't score too much, but it's just annoying to play against, and I feel like that's kind of a Whalers.
He's got like a nice tan. I feel like the players back then all had like better tans than they do now. I don't know why. Maybe it's because these guys like spend so much time in like the gym.
They're like Glenn Featherstone, just out there, mowing their lawn.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They got outside. They like were outside. Right.
They had better hair back then. That's for sure.
Yeah,
all the mullets and everything.
Oh my god.
So again, even though you're a New Yorker now, you're obviously still tied to Connecticut, in your heart, and obviously, and unfortunately, the state is still losing teams. We talked about the Bridgeport Islanders are going to move to Hamilton next year, which was a little surprising to us when it was first announced earlier this year. Also, the Connecticut Sun of the WNBA have announced that they're moving as well to Houston, which is crazy because Houston used to have a WNBA team, and they moved, I think, to Vegas, maybe. Now they're getting a new team and they're going to call them the Comets again, which is sort of weird. Do you still kind of feel that connection there when, like, a team is moving out of your home state, and does it bring back these memories of the Whalers?
Yeah, I mean, like the Sun thing, I'm like that. It's like it's weird because like everyone's like, "Who's a Sun fan?" I'm like, I know Connecticut Sun fans, but another thing to keep in mind is like you do have the Yukon women as well,
Sure.
and like having a WNBA, like it's different. It was different with hockey because like that was like the only it was the only major team in town, but also like the Connecticut Sun, it's like also they play in like they really do play like not near a lot of people. Like I know Hartford isn't that big, but like the Mohegan Sun's even Uncasville, Connecticut is even smaller. And while it's nice that to have that team, it's like it is more duplicative of the Yukon women than the Whalers were of like the Hartford Wolf Pack.
Yeah.
Which we did get season tickets to, and they were very good. Like we had great season tickets to the Wolf Pack, and they actually won the Calder Cup when I was in high school, and so I got to go. Yeah. Mike York was on that team, if you remember a Ranger to hate.
And Islander
Mike York. Wow,
yeah,
that's pretty funny.
We love him.
That's
Weirdly.
really funny.
Oh
yeah, we do weirdly love him. But yeah, no, I was kind of surprised to be like, wow, geez. Because I know the Bridgeport team, obviously, to us, it's like, wow, they're moving. I mean, it was so nice having the team in Bridgeport because it was only a couple of hour drive down the Hutchinson Parkway to the Islanders.
You guys didn't take the ferry from Port Wash?
I don't know if they did. Probably too long.
Or Port Jeff. Sorry, Port Jeff.
You put him on the port. Yeah, that became like an Islanders Twitter joke. Be like, yeah, you're getting on the ferry, buddy. I love the Port Jeff ferry. I going Bridgeport to Port Jeff when I was in college was quite a fun time. And then realizing that I live so far. Long Island is very long. I live very far away from Port Jefferson. So it made no sense for me. I just did it because I was like, it's more fun to take the ferry and then figure out a way to get home from Port Jeff than it is to just sit in traffic on I-95. The bridge losing Bridgeport, it does feel weird, right? It feels like there was some sort of like it. I almost feel like you can stand on the North Shore of Long Island and wave to the Sound Tigers, and now that's gone. So
I mean, hockey. When we were kids, it was a regional sport. And for better or for worse, it went national. It got rationalized. And that meant that just kind of these weird artifacts like the Hartford Whalers. And then it happened in the AHL too, where like when I was a kid, all the AHL teams were in the Northeast.
Yep.
It's like, and the furthest away team was like, I don't know, like Hershey or something, or
right. I was gonna say Chicago. Yeah, that was about.
Yeah, they had the Chicago. Well, that was like a big deal in the Chicago. Like it was all like kind of Northeast teams, and then now the AHL is, it's going national. So
yeah. Actually, what am I talking about? The Islanders had the team in Utah for the longest time, and now they're finally an NHL team. So, but yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like it used to be Lowell and Manchester and all these different towns, like from Rhode Island to
Springfield, Hartford, and New Haven all had teams.
Yeah, if you were a college town in the north, in the Northeast, like you had an AHL team that was doing dollar beer nights. So
right, I remember seeing the Portland Pirates and being like, wait, there's another Portland? It's in Maine? What? What the hell? It's not in Oregon? That's crazy. This has been a ton of fun, Aaron. And like I said, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. We've exchanged some DMs. You've always been super nice. And whenever it's election night, I always reach out to you and look forward to your writing and your posts and things like that. Everybody should check out Heartland Signal and the newsletter Radio Free America as well. And you alluded to this before, and I just, I feel again, Mike and I are going to have similar stories. Watching your team move means you have to deal with shit off the ice. Like it's one thing to worry about who's your sixth defenseman and who is Jeff Sanderson's center this year or whatever. But when these things start happening, you start to have to worry about other things that no sports fan wants to worry about. And I know for me, it was like, wait, why do I have to worry about, how much rent the Islanders are paying this year at Nassau Coliseum when the Rangers and Flyers and Penguins don't have to worry about that stuff, right? They're just putting a team together. Why do I have to worry about that? And it changed my worldview. It informed my feelings about these sorts of things. Would you say that that's similar to what happened to you? You're obviously a very civic minded guy. You're deeply into politics. Did all this come about in a way because of the Whalers move when you were at such a tender age?
Like I said, Bernie Sanders, the Dodgers moving was what radicalized him.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's kind of hard to figure out why you turned out the way you do. And there are times, especially in the last few years, where it's like, why did I have to care about politics? Why couldn't I have cared about, like, the price of frozen orange juice futures or something, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when I was 12, I learned that, like, there are kind of these forces at work that are unaccountable, that kind of need to be reined in, and it's only gotten worse since then. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do much to stop that, but I definitely had kind of I saw the world more clearly at 12 than a lot of other 12-year-olds, I think, because of it.
Yeah, I hear you. Watching your team's owner go to prison when you're in high school is like, man, really? This is really happening?
I know. I always said I ran for mayor in my hometown in 2011 when I was 21 because and a huge part of it was like I got to put myself in position to save the Islanders. Like this is the island because I was right around the referendum and I was like I got to figure out a way to do my part, and we both lost. They lost the referendum. I lost the election. So it was a loser. But I do think like all the time about if things had gone differently, like how I would be an incredibly different person had the Islanders left Long Island if I was a 12-year-old, right? Like I'm surrounded by Islander shit as I talk to you right now that like I'm so disorganized, but there's also so much of it that it's just like spilling over onto my desk and onto places that it shouldn't be. And like, that just wouldn't be here. And so I really feel for you.
Yeah, I would say, at least I live in New York now, and I was talking to a friend about this, and I was like, if the Whalers had stayed,
right,
I might have moved back home. Because, like, it's like there's not a lot going on. It's not, not a lot going on in Hartford. But, like, the Whalers stay. Like, well, I know what I'd be doing 40 nights a year,
right?
And so. Yeah, but these teams kind of, they are civic tent poles. And like when you lose that, you lose kind of a reason to stick around, unfortunately. And so if you look at my high school class, not a lot of people left for greener pastures. And, maybe if the Whalers stayed, maybe if Hartford can try to kind of build something around that, make itself a bit more of a destination. It's got, Hartford's had a lot of problems, but, maybe if that could have just been something, maybe more people have stuck around. So, be grateful for your Islanders. Be grateful for that stadium in Elmont.
Trust me, we are. Man,
we are.
we say it all the time. Like it's so weird staring into that abyss and coming back from it because you hear all the horror stories of people who didn't get to do that and then talking to people and being like, no, I truly. I go to bed grateful that I hate the Islanders right now, but I go to bed grateful for them, right? Like I'm happy I have that to hate because people in Hartford didn't, and I went to school with a couple folks who were huge Whalers fans, and they're a little younger than you, but like we're like I wish I had that. Like instead I had to just become a really big New England Patriots fan and like express it that way, and yeah, that decision turned out really well for me, but it could have went bad. But I'm like, yeah, like trust me, I get it, man. Like watching the arena we lived in, we played in crumble and asbestos in the ceiling, and owners go to jail. Like we were close.
Yeah.
Like you had to like stare that reality in the face.
Yeah,
well, I'm happy for the good folks, the good people of Long Island that they get to keep their team. I'm proud of, like, it's this artifact of what the NHL once was, and I'm glad it's still there.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we could have had this talk. I know some of it may have been painful for you, but I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, it's been 29 years, so the feelings are still a little raw, but I can get off the podcast and kind of go back to my life.
yeah, that's true too. But it's good to remember these things.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a nice trip down memory lane with you fellas.
Exactly. Awesome. This has been a lot of fun. Become a member of patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety for commercial-free episodes, bonus shows, written posts, chats, you name it, or you can just sign up for free to get our weekly release calendar. Our theme song this week is Brass Bonanza, the old Whalers fight song. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety Podcast are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Find us wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Please leave us a review where you can. Shop VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Read Heartland Signal. Sign up for Radio Free America, the newsletter from there. Mike, any final thoughts about the Whalers, Ken Belanger, Stu Grimson, or why you haven't told me this whole time that you ran for mayor of your town. We've been doing this podcast for 10 goddamn years, and I had no idea that you had done that. Why haven't we done an episode of Country Club Atmosphere on this? What?
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't know that? Yeah, no. I got walloped. I got walloped. I got 142 votes though.
Hey, that's not bad.
Yeah. And I ran on a like my big calling card was a big homework helping like think tank for elementary school kids at City Hall or our town hall. I was gonna abdicate out of town hall and just turn it into like a place for kids to do their homework. And I guess that wasn't good enough. But yeah, that's it. But my final thoughts here are just that, I am incredibly grateful for the New York Islanders, which is hard for me to say right now. And I'm also incredibly grateful for Kevin Haller's abdomen injury, because it got us Radek Martinek, who radicalized me, the Brooklyn Dodgers leaving might have radicalized our guy Bernie, but Radek Martinek radicalized me and made me start to see these professional athletes, the ones who kind of just do their thing as heroes. So thank you to Kevin Haller. Thank you to the Hartford Whalers and Aaron for doing this episode. Perfect way to end it. Anytime we could sneak Radek in there, it's perfect. And we're going to talk more about this mayor thing at some point. But until then, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another great guest and another weird Islander. Until then, keep the Islanders weird, keep the Whalers alive, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.